Hey everybody, how's it going? Bart of the Red Hand here, back again to talk about the Wheel of Time. This one we're going to be talking about basically the season finale of Season 2, as well as Season 2 as a whole. Don't expect this video to be like a super in-depth breakdown. I'm just here to give some my thoughts, reactions. I have watched the full season twice all the way through, and then various episodes more than twice. Especially my favorite ones. So, really been enjoying that. Now, you may be asking, Vance, why did it take you so long to make this video and get it out? A couple of things. I had some training at work that required me to swap my shifts to days. And dealing with the shift swap and then trying to make a video and stuff, the motivation just wasn't there. I was tired for 2 weeks, plus I had to wake up really early, which I normally don't do, and then attend like a 4-hour class every day. For 2 weeks, so that was hard. And then almost immediately after that, my brother got sick and wound up in the hospital, and that was pretty much what we've been dealing with all the way up till now. He's out, he's discharged, he is on the road to recovery, he's doing much better. He had like an infection, and that was messing with his heart, so we were really worried about that. But good news, his heart's fine. The infection is gone, and he is motivated to make some lifestyle changes because he had a pretty big scare in there. So I'm proud of him for embarking on the first steps to a healthier lifestyle for him. But yeah, that ate up most of my time for the last month since the season finale. So yeah, I'm here to talk about it and just share my feelings and opinions, because as always, in moments of in these moments where we have troubles or struggles or face our own adversities in life, or life throws us curveballs, we as Wheel of Time fans can always come back to the books and now the show. And I was definitely kind of leaning into my comfort series, which is the Wheel of Time, during all of this, reading some of my favorite chapters, going back and watching the parts of the episodes that were my favorite parts. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. The finale of Season 2 of The Wheel of Time was nothing short of fantastic. I personally really enjoyed this. This was much better than the Season 1 finale, which many of y'all know I was not the biggest fan of. It was okay. It had, half of the episode I really liked, and then the other half of it I did not like that much. That's just my take on it. You can say whatever you want. That's fine. I'm not going to tell you shouldn't like it. If you like it, by all means. I wish I could enjoy it with you as much as some of you do, for sure. And the same kind of goes with like Season 1. And as we've gotten further away from Season 1 and I rewatched it, it's not my favorite thing. Now granted, I've been very open about this with everybody. The Eye of the World is not my favorite Wheel of Time book. I love that book, don't get me wrong. But it's like a solid like middle tier book for me. Out of a 14-book series, it would fall almost solidly in the middle. Now, on your first reread after completing the series, it's a much better read. And what I'm hoping is that by the end of the show, Season 1 will get the same treatment that we see the Eye of the World get. So, yes, I'm I'm keeping my hopes up for that, because that's how it was for me with the Eye of the World. In fact, when I started reading the Eye of the World, I got to chapter 12 and put it down for 5 years. I mean, it just did not grab me at that point in my life. And it wasn't until much later that I picked it back up and got into it and was able to keep going. So, yeah. And Season 1, I feel, currently is much the same for me. It was an okay starting off point. There were some things in there, as a fan, I do love to see. And there are a lot of things they did well, and then there were choices and things that I didn't necessarily agree with, as we all do, right? There are choices that Robert Jordan made in the books that we don't all agree with. Like, you can write 100 million books on every Wheel of Time fan's opinions about what they do and don't like, and it would be significantly longer than the primary series. So anyway, yes, this episode was nothing short of fantastic for me. I would rate this this is probably my second highest rated episode of the series. I think episode 5 That's the one I'm thinking of correctly, if I get my numbers correct here. Yeah, episode 5 was the first episode I rated as a 10 out of 10. And this is not like, I'm not rating quality or necessarily even writing. For me, it's all about the feeling. And I need to feel like when I'm watching the show, I need to feel like I'm in the world of the Wheel of Time. And both episode 5 and this episode definitely encapsulated that for me. I felt sucked in, and I felt, like I was there. It was almost, for me, sometimes as if I was reading some of the books again. And that doesn't make them perfect. And a 10 out of 10 it does not imply perfection from me, right? Like, because my 10s are, you should never consider them as, that means it's perfect, right? It's just based off feels and how it made me feel. And yeah, so episode 8, the season finale, I'm rating a 9 out of 10, just so everyone is there where we stand. So we're going to go ahead and jump into some of my favorite moments. These are not going to be in any particular order. In fact, they may completely be out of order. I'm not even going to go in episode plot order. Mostly I'm going off the cuff here because I just want to talk about the things that made me feel emotions. And that's always the best thing. So the number one scene for me is, of course, the Horn of Valere. I mean, for me, that was, I've been saying this since before season 1 came out. They have to have the horn. It is the pivotal moment in the end of the book, right? Like, because I never really expected when reading the book that they would actually blow the horn, and that blew my mind because I thought that would come in later, right? I didn't think that they would use something so powerful so early in the series. Right now, this is obviously like an echo of when the series was supposed to be a little bit shorter than what we got, and so the pace was a lot more breakneck than it eventually becomes, but I'm glad that it made it into the show. It is such a pivotal moment, and they did it in such a way that made it very meaningful for Matt. Now, whether or not you feel that what happens with Matt is earned or not, you can't deny that the scene wasn't cool. You can't deny that when you rewatch it, it doesn't, like, you don't feel things with the music and everything. Lorne Balfe kicked it out of the park with the score for the Horn of Valere, and it was like the most traditional fantasy score sound we'd had thus far within the Wheel of Time, and I feel that this was an appropriate spot for that. Especially given just what the Horn of Valere represents and the heroes that it summons throughout, all of mythology, all of these cyclically reincarnated, extremely influential and important individuals who are constantly spun out, right? And they're they may not all be as important as the Dragon Reborn, but they are all very important. And in many time periods, they are sometimes the most influential and or important people of their age. So, yeah, that was just, I loved it. I loved everything about it. And I like how it did kind of restore Matt's memories to a degree. Now, I'm not sure if it's restored all of them or what they're going to do with his specific plot point here. I'm very interested to see how that goes. Especially as it's going to relate to other Matt plot points further down the road. Book readers know what I'm talking about. So anyway, yeah, just before I just go out of control and gush about this, I want to wrap it up and move on to the next plot point, and that is Egwene murdering the shit out of Rhenna. Holy crap, I did not expect it, but it's much better than how everything goes down in the book, specifically for Rhenna. Let me now clarify that. It's much better for Rhenna as a character, and she is much better utilized in this capacity than she is in the books. That's the point I want to make there. And the reason for that is spoilers if you're not a book reader, and if you don't care, you've got now. Okay, so we all know that Rhenna dies at the end of Crossroads of Twilight, right? Like the big climax is Matt and the band chasing her through the woods, and then he shoots her with a crossbow, and she dies. And that's it. Like, she's in book 2, and then she has a couple more show up parts throughout the rest of the series whenever we get to like a Shan-Chan part, but then it amounts to nothing, absolutely, except a moment where Matt has to kill a woman, and he feels Southern man bad about it, Southern chivalric toxic masculine bad about it, right? And so, yeah, that's, and just, I fully understand, y'all, that is totally Robert Jordan processing his own PTSD from the Vietnam War, right? Like, he's been on record stating that he was in situations similar to this where it was a do or die. And in their case, it's not so much do or die, but, you know, if Rena got away, she was going to tell the Shan where they were at, and they would be under full assault, and they wouldn't be able to get away. So it was really like, we gotta do something, like, because we can't catch her. She was so far, like, across a river or something. So yeah, I mean, I fully get it. Like, I understand that that's not him trying to make a point about anything other than he is processing his own trauma through his writing. And, you know, it's not the most climactic ending in the books. In fact, it's probably the least climactic ending throughout the entirety of the Wheel of Time. So, yeah, it's, anyway, yeah, Egwene just murdering Rena, much better than the books. And the entire time that the scene is going on, the tension is just so palpable. It is, they built that up very well. Egwene this season, her writing, and of course Madeline Madden, like, knocked it out of the park. Just, I cannot believe how good she was this season, especially because I thought sometimes, and this isn't her fault, but sometimes last season, Egwene didn't have, like, the best moments or writing. Arguably, you could say most of the characters of the 5 didn't, right? Like, almost all the best scenes involved Moraine and others. But yeah, it was just totally awesome. Moving on to the third thing I liked, I really enjoyed how they're tying Perrin's storyline together now. He's had a slow go of it. It's not really been moving. I mean, Perrin's storyline does go slowly in the books, but it's really not until after book 4. Perrin has fairly consistent story development from book 1 through 4. In fact, probably some of the best. You know, he's probably second best to Rand in the consideration, because honestly, Dragon Reborn is a Perrin book. It's a Perrin and Egwene book. They're center stage, and then yeah. So, but Perrin had already had some really great development in the Eye of the World and the Great Hunt, whereas Egwene didn't have as much as he had. So yeah, just sorry, I keep looking back at my books because, well, 1, I love to look at them. 2, it helps me remember. Anyway, yeah, so just the tying of killing Dane Bornhold's father, which was something that Perrin was framed for, kind of, in the books. I think it works very well that he actually did it, because it does set up, Perrin does have conflict with the White Cloaks in the books, and it happens a bit differently, but in this manner they've set it up, it really adds that personal element to it, because in the books he's framed for this by another character, but I like that Dane was there and actually able to witness him killing Jeffrem, because that really adds to that personal point, right? That really adds to that storyline, because in the books you're kind of like, you know, people tell Dane, like, oh yeah, Perrin didn't actually do that, so why are you still mad, brah? And it just doesn't kind of make sense. So this is going to make a lot more sense as the series rolls on. And you know, just the way that Hopper went, I hate having to see it again. This is, but we have to. It's part of Perrin's storyline, and yeah, it's a very, you know, sad, touching moment. I wish we had some more time with Perrin and Hopper, and I wish they had. I'm not the biggest fan of how they've done the wolf talk. I mean, wolf communication. It's okay, and it is. I mean, it's fairly close to the books, but it's I feel like it's a little too open to interpretation in the terms of the show, right? Like, because the difference is that we're all, like, Perrin has to stop and physically speak what's happening, whereas in the books, all his deciphering of what the wolves are telling him is in his mind. And we're in his point of view normally, and so it feels natural that way, whereas with him having to say things, like kind of explain what they're telling him, makes it feel like it's weird to pace. And maybe I hope they get better with it as the show goes on, but it felt a little clunky, just from a like nuts and bolts kind of standpoint of actually putting it all together. But yeah, other than that little complaint, nothing but praise for how all of that went down and was executed. Okay, and now for just a little bit, a couple of things that didn't sit very well with me, that didn't jive with the rest of the episode, things I was less happy about. Happy that some of these things still made it on screen, even though they weren't utilized in ways that necessarily made sense. And number one of these is Nynaeve and Elaine. Like they pretty much tried to do their plot point from the books, and then it doesn't happen because they walk through the courtyard. The Soldan that they captured gets an arrow through the neck, and then Elaine immediately gets an arrow in the knee, which I had to pause the episode and laugh for a solid few minutes at that point, because I mean, Skyrim fans, you're out there with me. I used to be an adventurer like you till I took an arrow in the knee.
I used to be an adventurer like you, then I took an arrow in the knee.
My lord, it is so funny. I don't know why they specifically did that, but oh my lord. Yeah, so Elaine takes an arrow in the knee, and that pretty much like, it really incapacitates her for a good chunk of the episode, and it slows her and Nynaeve down. And it slows them down to the point where really they do nothing in the rest of the episode. They show up again at the end, but like it's not like a huge deal. So I thought that was just some wasted story potential. And I mean, of course, like the thing here is, and this is what everyone is saying, and we all know it, the episodes need to be longer, and they need more episodes. There is no reason these episodes need to be 50 minutes long. Honestly, they can be an hour and a half. I will be okay. Y'all, I watch Korean dramas. Sometimes they're an hour and a half. If my ADHD ass can sit down and watch TV for an hour and a half, other people can too. Trust me. Like, I think either hour and a half long episodes or more episodes total. That's just what it's got to be, because there's really no reason we can't do either, right? And I really hope Amazon wakes up to that fact and can a lot more money, especially with how successful the show has at least been by most of the metrics that we've seen that have been published and are available to us. It seems to have done very well in season 2, maybe even better than in season 1, which I'm hoping, like, that's what we want to see, because we want next season to be like the big breakout season, which is kind of what happened with Game of Thrones, really, right? Like season 3 is really when everyone started talking about it. And it became kind of the phenomenon that it was. Seasons 1 and 2 were a bit more, season 1 was super fans only, under the radar kind of deal, and season 2 got a little bit wider audience, and season 3, boom, it just exploded, right? So yeah, either longer episodes or more episodes, please. That's what we need. We really need it. You can't compress all these books into 60 hours. You can, but it's really hard, and we're seeing just how hard it is with what's not making it, what is making it, and some of the adaptation choices that they're implementing to get us from the Two Rivers to Shale Ghul. Next thing I didn't really enjoy was Moraine and Lan on the beach. Like, I know a lot of people liked that, and that resonated emotionally with a lot of folks, but for me, their whole little plot line was not my favorite throughout season 2. It's a big reason I did not enjoy episode 1. It's a big reason I didn't enjoy parts of episode 4. There are just, there's just a lot that that goes into their storyline that did not work for me. There were some moments that did work that I thought were really good, and those moments were almost directly lifted from the books. But the stuff that wasn't, or was more loosely adapted, I guess I should say, is not as good. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, that's your thing. But I really didn't. I didn't feel like the payoff was truly there. Like, it was a nice moment, and in the moment, it was nice to see. But it just did not land for me. And you know, I understand that they're trying to have something for Moiraine to do because Rosamund is the big A-lister, and Daniel Henney is also a really big get for them for the show, and they have to have something for them to do, right? Because in book 2, actually, Lan and Moiraine are gone after the beginning. Then they pop in for like a little chapter, and then they're gone again till the end. So in terms of screen time in book 2, they don't have a lot, and a lot of what they're doing, they're pulling, and this is exactly what they did with the Aes Sedai plot from season 1, is they're pulling things that do happen later on in the books and pulling them down. Though because of that, they're changing how things happened in the context of why things are happening. So we'll wait and see how things are going to shift a bit, because there are some big plot points for both of them coming up in season 3 and 4, and we'll just have to wait and see how that all goes down. But yeah, it just did not work for me. I did like Moraine's big fire dragon at the end, even though it's not quite what happens in the books. I thought it was still visually pretty cool, and you know, it was nice. The metaphysics for the series are out the window. We are in strong soft magic territory for the One Power. I don't think they're ever going to fully establish rules, at least not in the way that they're established in the books, which is a bit disappointing, because the magic system and its rules, especially as it relates to the One Power specifically, are one of the reasons that the books are so they endure for as long as they do. I'm not saying that the Wheel of Time does not have soft magic. It has multiple magic systems in it, actually, and most of them are soft. But the One Power is relatively hard in comparison. And maybe we'll get some more explanations. Maybe they'll change a few things here and there, just to stretch what they can do within the show, right? But like, technically Moiraine should not have been able to channel that dragon because it was like miles away. But you know, it's kind of a minor detail, but it's just one of those things where there have been a few metaphysical things from season 1 and 2 now that I've noticed that are not necessarily, I don't want to use the word correct, but they're different from the books, right? And if they want to change the metaphysics for the show, that's fine. I'm totally fine with it. But like, I really wish we had something like Origins back where they could explain the lore of what they're doing in the show, because it's driving me bonkers. You know, I know folks out there are like, oh, you got to not just think about the book. Look, the books have been with me for a lot longer than the show has. I can't live in a world where they don't exist because I read them. And if you can, more power to you. I can't. I'm always going to go back to, like, that's not the same. But I don't let it ruin my enjoyment necessarily. If anything, it's actually kind of more fun to, like, I do kind of like puzzling, like, well, can that fit within the confines of how things work in the books versus what they're doing in the show? Can we make that work, right? And we can get into a whole bunch of theory crafting and stuff like that. And that's fun to me. Like, those things are fun. I don't want to, like, nitpick little things in the show necessarily, like production here and there, or, oh, well, that extra had a different thing on in the back, whatever, you know. As long as it's not a Starbucks cup on the table and it's in clear shot, then we'll be okay, I think, for the most part. But yeah, and moving on to the last thing, I did not really enjoy the whole, like, the friends come together at the end with Egwene and Perrin and the shield, and they push Shamael back. I mean, it's okay. It's fine. But I I don't know. I just, it looked a little goofy to me, was all. And I mean, keep in mind, like maybe on a few more rewatches of this, I will warm up to it. I'm already less bothered by it than I was the first time I saw it. I was like, oh, this is very weird. And it's totally plausible. Like, Perrin gets the shield from Uno, who is essentially Guidel Kane. And the shield is from a Hero of the Horn, so it's probably, imbued with some pattern, power kind of deal, right? So that helps Egwene continue holding her shield, so Ishamael just can't keep pummeling them with fire. I did like, though, that Rand essentially does Ishamael in the same way he does in the end of The Great Hunt and the end of The Dragon Reborn. So, yeah, as far as that goes, that was fine. But it was just that moment of, like, leading up to that. And yeah. So before I go too rambly about all these things that were not as good for me, I do want to get back to things that were fantastic. As far as fantastic, Ishamael, my lord, he was great. Of course, I knew him when he showed up at the end of season 1 immediately because of the game A Way Out. He was in that. His brother's game development studio made that game, and he acted in it. So I already knew he was a great actor, and it was like, oh, that's that guy. I knew him instantly. So that was really cool. He's played a great Ishamael, and it's a shame that he's bowed out this early, but also that is how early Ishamael bows out. So we'll see what happens later on, because there are some more plot points there related to that, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because we've seen Forsaken be murdered, and they just came back to life. But in this instance, we see another one get murdered. Now, granted, it's quite a bit different because he's murdered with the Hairmark sword, which is also kind of has the power friendship behind it, and then it also melts as it kills him. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, anyway, Forrest did a great job. Natasha O'Keeffe as Landfear. When I first read The Great Hunt as a younger man, I was really smitten with Celine Landfear. I kind of soured on her a little bit as the series went on, because I was getting older as I was reading it. And I was like, oh, she's kind of like just crazy ex. It's like, it's not an adjusted lady at all. She was cooler in book 2. And yeah, so I'm really enjoying this version that the show is giving us. There's a lot of changes in the show that I like, and it's just everyone who, that's the thing, is find the things you like. Don't harp on the things you dislike. You can talk about them, but don't walk into something where some people are like, oh, hey, we like this. Well, actually, you shouldn't, because I'm going to come in here and tell you why. Anyway, same, if someone doesn't like something, don't go in there and go, well, actually, and try to tell them why they should like it, right? Just move on. Move. I'm not saying don't have discussions. Don't debate. You can debate points, but don't be an ass about it. That's all I'm trying to say. Just don't be an ass about it. Anyway, yeah, so overall impressions of season 2, I think I ranked it like a 7 out of 10, a high 7, like a 7.8 or something like that. Was because I actually gave each episode a numbered score, and then totaled that up, then divided it, and it was like 7.8 or something. So it didn't quite hit the 8.0 that I wanted for season 2, but it's close. We're so close. So it's a big improvement over season 1. I actually downgraded season 1. When I finished season 1, I put that at a 7 out of 10. And about a month after, I said, I think it's actually about like a 6 for me, really, which was fine. 6 it's above 5. It's above the middle, which is average. It's okay. It was perfectly acceptable for the show, and I tell people this all the time. The Eye of the World is a 6 out of 10 book for me. So like, this tracks. That tracks. The Great Hunt is my favorite book of the series. It is my 10 out of 10 book. And or in the case of the Wheel of Time, my 15 out of 15. But yeah, it didn't quite hit the highest high, but it hit a lot of them. It was very good overall for season 2. I really enjoyed it, and I think if the show can maintain this quality, and tighten up a few things here and there, specifically with plotting, like full season plotting specifically, and then they do have some issues where sometimes some characters have very little to do. Now granted, I know the books have this issue too, but we don't always, because it's a book, we don't have to put them on screen because there's not actors with contracts to be paid, right? So instead of just throwing them on screen because we have these contractual obligations to put them on the screen, like, let's actually make their time mean something on screen. And I do feel like that the show still has some problems with fully utilizing not only the cast, but all of the available plot points. And I know it's hard. I know it's a difficult job. I'm not a television writer, right? But that doesn't mean I can't give my thoughts on it. And yeah, I just feel like that's a struggle that they have. I'm not knocking them. I'm not trying to say they did a terrible job. I don't think that. I think they have some real struggles. This is a hard series to adapt. For years, we all said this is unadaptable. It's not happening, and they're doing it, and they're getting better and succeeding. So yeah, we've got to just maybe be a little bit more patient. Let them cook, as Allie and Gus will say. Let them cook. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to let them cook. But when you can smell how good it is, sometimes you really want it to be ready, you know. But you know, we'll see. I have high hopes, very high hopes for season 3. I think ultimately season 1 and 2 have had to suffer a little bit. We've had to say goodbye to some things from the first 3 books that we all dearly love. But we've had to say goodbye to those because really, we all know where the Wheel of Time is going to catch people, and that's the book 4 content. And that's happening next season, and it's just been a rush to get here. And they know they got to get there. They don't have the time that Robert Jordan had. They don't have the ability to take characters off screen for an entire season and then, you know, bring them back. They can't axe their main cast like that. So we're not going to get a season where Matt doesn't appear. We're not going to get a season where Perrin doesn't appear, right? It's just not a thing that's going to happen. So they're going to have to come up with ways to constantly keep these characters engaged and involved. And you know, they're getting better at it. It's just they haven't been quite there yet with season 1 and season 2, and that was very obvious to me, especially with Nynaeve and Elaine in this last episode, because they were essentially doing their proper book storyline, but then because of the way they changed some things, which I like the way Egwene's rescue went down, especially that she did it herself. I thought that was really cool because, you know, we know Egwene is very talented at these things and that she is probably good enough to do it. And so, yeah, it was totally believable for me that that could happen, but it just did not give them anything to do. And so, you know, we have to look at, was Egwene's awesome moment and this great usage of Rhenna in season 2, don't get me, like, is much better than Rhenna's usage is much better in season 2 than it is in the entirety of the series. But what, like, Nynaeve and Elaine did have a small price to pay for that in their storyline. So anyway, this is just, I'm getting rambly, y'all, but overall, I enjoyed it. I'm much happier with season 2 than I am with season 1. And again, I do hope season 1 will get the Eye of the World treatment where we finish the season finale of the last season. We wrap up, the credits roll, and we go, well, it's time to watch season 1 again.